Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily News Analysis by Civil Service Institute, Pala. Let's look at the top stories of the day. India declines to endorse joint statement at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization over exclusion of 𝗲𝗯 attack. Ensure issue of birth certificate before discharge of newborns. Registrar General of India tells states. Elephant census phase 1 over in Northeast. 3,000-kilometer railway lines mapped. Funding note for one-year pilot project to manage human-tiger conflict outside reserves. World Bank says 5.75% Indians live in abject poverty. How to read this data? What sparked the 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃 controversy? And today, there was a news and mention about 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗶𝗀. So let's look the news in detail. In the first article, India declined to endorse the joint statement at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) Defense Ministers meeting in China and pushed for including tougher language on terrorism that would reflect the Indian position, particularly in the wake of 𝗲𝗯 terror attack on April 22nd. The document did not mention the 𝗲𝗯 attack, but included militant activities in Balochistan. Pakistan and China were trying to divert attention from terrorism. The document would have diluted India's position on critical issues, particularly terrorism and regional security. Peace and prosperity cannot coexist with terrorism and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction in the hands of non-state actors and terror groups, our Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, said in the meeting. And he also criticized that SCO should not hesitate to criticize such nations. So, in the wake of this news, it becomes important to look into what Shanghai Cooperation Organization is. It's an intergovernmental political, economic, and security alliance founded in 2001. Actually, it was started in 1996 in the name of Shanghai 5. It was a multinational grouping established by Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan, almost all the important Central Asian countries. And in 2001, after adding Uzbekistan, the Shanghai 5 was renamed the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And in 2015, at Russia, the SCO decided to admit India and Pakistan as full members. So presently, the organization has China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Iran, and Uzbekistan as its permanent members. And there are 3 observer states, which are Afghanistan, Belarus, and Mongolia. The Secretariat of SCO is situated in Beijing, and it is the main permanent executive body. The most important institution associated with SCO is the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, RATS. RATS is responsible for coordinating efforts among member countries to combat terrorism, separatism, and extremism. RATS is headquartered in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Moving on to the next news. Ensure issue of birth certificate before discharge of newborns. Registrar General of India tells states. Registrar General of India issues letter to states as documents utility has increased. The birth certificate's utility has increased in recent past. So RGI has asked all states to ensure that birth certificates are issued to mothers of newborn children before they are discharged from hospitals, particularly government-run hospitals, which account for more than 50% of institutional births in the country. The certificate should be issued not later than 7 days, either in an electronic or other format. We have taken several steps to improve the civil registration system, including amendment to the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969. In view of the increased importance of the birth certificate, it said government hospitals, community health centers, and primary health centers across the country are working as registration units, and the registrars of such units should be sensitized to the importance of immediate issuance of birth certificate. From October 1, 2023, the digital birth certificate is the single document to prove the date of birth for various services such as admission to educational institution, government jobs, marriage registration, among others. A birth certificate is issued by the registrar in accordance with the Section 12 of the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969. The same act was amended in 2023 and it mandates registration of all births and deaths on the sender's portal from October 1, 2023. Earlier, states maintained their own database and shared statistics with the RGI office under the Union Home Ministry. Hope this is clear. Moving on to the next news. Here, this article becomes important from the environment and ecology perspective, both for prelims and mains. Elephant census phase 1 over in Northeast, 3,000-kilometer railway lines map. The Union Environment Ministry held a review of key initiatives under Project Elephant in the 21st meeting of the project's steering committee. And in the same meeting, it was noted that phase 1 of the synchronized elephant population estimation was completed for the northeastern states. The Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife in Dehradun and the committee recommended the inclusion of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and gharial in the ministry's species recovery program. According to the ministry, in the meeting, it was noted that as part of the government's plan to mitigate elephant mortalities due to collisions with trains, almost 3,500 kilometers of sensitive railway structures were surveyed and 77 high-risk areas were identified for mitigation. Here, Project Elephant is a centrally sponsored scheme and the steering committee reviews the project's implementation and issues such as elephant conservation and protection of habitats. Further, the committee also discussed regional action plans on human-elephant conflict in southern and northeastern India, particularly. The last elephant census or estimation exercise was carried out in 2017, which found that the country was home to around 30,000 elephants. So, from this article, it becomes important to look into National Board for Wildlife. So NBWL, that is National Board for Wildlife, is a statutory body constituted under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. It is the apex body on wildlife conservation and development. So the NBWL is a 47-member committee headed by the Prime Minister, who serves as the ex officio chairperson, while the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change serves as the vice chairperson. Other members included in the committee are officials involved in wildlife conservation, the Chief of Army Staff, Defense Secretary, and Expenditure Secretary. 10 eminent conservationists, ecologists, and other environmentalists nominated by the central government. And the function of this statutory body is, it is mandated to promote conservation and development of wildlife and forest. Again, a same news, again from the environment and ecology part, funding note for 1-year pilot project to manage human-tiger conflict outside reserves. Here in this article, the Union Environment Ministry has approved funding for a pilot scheme to manage human-tiger conflicts outside tiger reserves through monitoring and protection. This will be a 1-year pilot project which will cover 80 forest divisions across 10 states in the country that have witnessed increased and recurring instances of human-tiger conflict. The Executive Committee of the National Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority, called 𝗗𝗄𝗆, under the Environment Ministry, approved the in-principle funding. The funding will be used for technical interventions for protection and monitoring of tigers and also their co-predators like leopards, strengthening forest managers to address conflict with technology, collaborations with civil society and expert veterinarians, and augmentation of prey base. On the ground, the scheme will be implemented by the Chief Wildlife Wardens of state forest departments in close collaboration with the National Tiger Conservation Authority. So the National 𝗘𝗶𝗹 Authority manages the money collected in the National Compensatory Afforestation Fund. So we have to pay a compensation when we clear forest land for non-forest activities. So 𝗘𝗶𝗹 is the authority that manages this amount that is collected. So the fund has also partially financed other wildlife projects such as Great Indian Bustard Recovery Program, Great Indian Bustard Recovery Program, and also Project Cheetah. With nearly 30% of the country's over 3,600 tigers often prey on cattle and herbivores near human settlements. So 30% of the country's tigers reside outside the reserve area. I make it clear, 30% of the country's tiger population reside outside the tiger reserves. So which will increase the human-animal conflict. And they will also push co-predators like leopards to areas outside forest, thus adding to the crisis. So this trend has been seen in territorial forest like Chandrapur near Tadaba Andheri Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra, and in the sugarcane fields near Dudhwa and Pilibhit in Uttar Pradesh, and some divisions near Ranthambore and Wayanad in Kerala. So I hope this is clear. Moving on to the next news. Here, World Bank says 5.75% of Indians live in abject poverty, and how to read this data. So here, first of all, we have to make clear what is abject poverty. So abject poverty is also known as extreme poverty, characterized by lack of basic necessities, basic amenities like food, clean water, shelter, healthcare, and education. It represents a state where the individual is struggling to survive and experience high risk of preventable diseases and death. So, the basic question is, what is a poverty line? A poverty line is the level of income used as a cutoff point for deciding who is poor in an economy. It is important to note here that the context, both time period and location, is critical at arriving a meaningful poverty line. So for instance, for example, an Indian receiving a salary of rupees 1,000 a month may not be considered poor in 1975. But today, that income will barely buy anything. Similarly, a monthly salary of rupees 1 lakh in today's Patna will be comfortable to live in a city like Patna, but the same salary won't buy you anything or won't match the lifestyle in Paris or New York. So there is no one level of poverty. So poverty cannot be measured. So maybe 1,000 rupees will be comfortable for a person living in Africa, but that may not be the situation for a person living in USA. So the comfort level and the lifestyle level varies between person to person. It may be okay for someone and it may be barely enough for some other person. So it is not, we can't measure poverty as such. Governments, especially in developing and poor countries, want to identify the extent of poverty in their countries. And this is for two uses. One, to help them gauge the extent of poverty and shape welfare policies for the poor. And the second is for the governments and policymakers and analysts to understand whether a set of policies they have actually formulated is working and has worked to reduce poverty and improve well-being. Historically, India has been a leader in poverty estimation, and India's poverty line methodology and data collection influenced the rest of the world in how to study poverty. So India's last officially recognized poverty line was in 2011-2012. It was built on a 2009 formula suggested by a committee led by noted Delhi school economist Suresh Tendulkar. Since then, there has been no update on the method. In 2014, a committee led by former RBI Governor C. Rangarajan was commissioned to provide a new method, but this recommendation was never officially accepted. Since then, India has increasingly used either the 𝗍𝗶𝗃𝗃 multidimensional poverty index, which is fundamentally different in how it measures poverty, or else relied on the World Bank's poverty line. So India presently relies either on 𝗍𝗶𝗃𝗃 multidimensional poverty index or on World Bank's poverty line. So India's own domestically formulated poverty line in 2009 before the Tendulkar recommendation was rupees 17 a day per person for urban areas and rupees 12 a day per person for rural areas. And in 2009, Tendulkar raised the poverty line to rupees 29 per day per person in urban areas and rupees 22 per day per person in rural areas, and later to rupees 36 in urban areas and rupees 30 in rural areas. And this was taken into account in 2011-2012 poverty line recognition. In 2014, Rangarajan recommended raising the domestic poverty line to rupees 47 per person per day in urban areas and rupees 33 in rural areas. In the absence of a robust and updated domestic poverty line, and given the gaps and changes in data collection, India's poverty estimates exhibit wide variation, creating both confusion and controversy. So poverty line makes sense only when we can capture the context, like purchasing power at a particular time and place. This is why World Bank's poverty line makes sense. It is based on purchasing power parity calculations. So World Bank's poverty line calculation is done based on purchasing power parity. And I think it's the best way and the better way to identify poverty. Poverty in India could be as low as 2% or as high as 82%, depending on the choice of poverty line and methodology. The same trend of variation exists in the reduction of poverty rates. They could be steep or fairly gradual. So we can't say we need to have a proper methodology and a new one has to be formulated. Moving on to the next news. Here we are looking at the recent controversy over 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗃 excavations. So on June 17, archaeologist 𝗗𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃, whose excavation at 𝗗𝗃𝗃 in Tamil Nadu drew the nation's attention, was transferred yet again, this time from New Delhi to Greater Noida. Mr. Ramakrishna was serving as the director and as director of the National Mission on Monuments and Antiquities. He will now only have the charge of director of NMMA only, which almost remains defunct. So Mr. Ramakrishna submitted his 982-page report on the first two phases of excavations, which was carried out in 𝗗𝗃𝗃 between 2014 and 2016. But the ASI, that is Archaeological Survey of India, mandated that he revise his report, but he refused to do it. And this disagreement sparked a political clash between the sender and state of Tamil Nadu. So how did 𝗗𝗃𝗃 excavation begin? Why 𝗗𝗃𝗃 is important? 𝗗𝗃𝗃 has become a symbol of pride for many in Tamil Nadu. Actually, the person in the photo has initiated excavations, that is Mr. Ramakrishna has initiated excavations at a site known as Pallichandai near 𝗗𝗃𝗃, and it was originally a coconut grove spanning 100 acres. He had identified over 100 sites for excavation along the Vaigai River. So from this place, he unearthed almost 7,500 ancient artifacts, including wall structures, drainage systems, wells, all evidence of a sophisticated urban society that thrived there. And while doing carbon dating, it was revealed that these elements are over 2,160 years old. 2,160 years old, dating back to the 2nd century BCE, which is the time of the Sangam period in Tamil history. So why these findings are significant? So as we seen, wall structures, drainage systems, and wells all gives us an assumption of an urban civilization. As we all know, as of now, Indus Valley civilization is the only urban civilization that existed in the ancient world. So, this recent discoveries hold tremendous scope for the scope of existing a similar kind of civilization in South India. So there was no evidence of religious symbols at the excavation site, which hinted at the secular nature of the civilization. Tamil historians and enthusiasts saw it as a proof of an advanced ancient Tamil civilization. But this has become a center of political crisis, with the sender and Tamil Nadu fighting each other. It all began in 2017 when the ASI transferred Mr. Ramakrishna to Assam, and the third phase of 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃 excavations was carried out by another archaeologist. The local political climate grew tense, with some alleging that the sender was trying to suppress Tamil heritage. By 2017, the excavations had entered its third phase, and under another archaeologist, P.S. Sriraman. So as of now, the ASI questioned the dating and depth of certain findings, suggesting the evidence for the earliest period as it appeared to be very early, and said it needed further analysis. But Mr. Ramakrishna, however, stood firm and refused to rewrite his conclusions, defending his work as scientifically sound based on rigorous archaeological standards. And he also argued that he had used and reported based on chronology of stratigraphic sequences, material culture, and even he has used accelerator mass spectrometry. So the move drew political outrage in Tamil Nadu, with parties accusing the center of suppressing Tamil heritage, turning 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃 into a flashpoint between science, politics, and identity. Moving on to the last news of the day. Here, 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗆𝘆 manufacturers cry foul over Prada's replica sandal. 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗆𝗆 manufacturers have taken strong exception to Italian luxury fashion brand Prada's recently showcased men's spring-summer collection of 2026, alleging that the featured sandals bear a striking resemblance to the traditional 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗆𝗆s, a product granted geographical indication tag by the Government of India. So what is the uniqueness of this chapel? These sturdy leather chapels are handcrafted and tanned using vegetable dyes, and the art of making them is passed down one generation to another. And the history behind this chapel, this GI tag chapel, is actually GI application. GI tag application was made by two states, Maharashtra and Karnataka, and 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃s can be traced back to 12th century when King 𝗤𝗏𝗃𝗃 ruled Bidar, presently in Karnataka, and the king's prime minister, 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗏, wanted to create a casteless society and remove stigma attached to cobbler community. Thus, the community embraced Lingayat faith and used its skills to start producing footwear that came to be known equally for its ruggedness and regal bearing. So that's all for the day. Thank you. Have a nice day.